Subscribe now.
and step into the magic. Hi, welcome to the Wu Ways. I'm Om Shri,
Hi, my name is Calvin.
and today we have a special guest. Ta-da! She is a family constellation therapist.
Facilitator. We prefer the term
Facilitator?
facilitator, yes.
So if you are curious about family constellation, it is a therapeutic approach that explores the dynamics within the family system. So all of us have a family, and some of our families are little, has history of repeated patterns. You notice there are things that have been happening. So we have Surabhi here who will help clear the understanding of what this particular therapy is about, and also the journey on how she got there. So thank you.
Thank you, Surabhi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we want to know a little bit about yourself. Okay, Surabhi, can you just tell us, who are you, where you from, then how you end up with these modalities?
Okay, so my name is Surabhi. So I'm Malaysian. I'm from here. I'm from KL actually. I'm actually an engineer by background, so my fancy. I like saying that. My background is actually engineering, and I actually work in the oil and gas industry still, even today.
Okay.
I work as a chemical engineer, process engineer in the oil and gas industry, and I have done for many years. But family constellation work is something that I chose to do additionally. So I did take a career break a few years ago for a variety of reasons, but because I had a little bit of time off, I decided to then get certified in this form of work, something that I'd been exposed to long before I actually took my career break. But it always fascinated me, and I really liked it, and I saw the benefits that it was bringing into the lives of those close to me, and so it just kept on intriguing me. So finally, when I had a bit of time off, I was like, okay, fine, this is a great time for me to go in and study a little bit more about it. So I did. Which is why, and after that, I started it mainly to work on my own stuff, on my own patterns, my own trauma patterns.
That's how it starts.
It always starts that way. And then after I finished it, I decided, okay, I can, since I was still not doing my engineering work again, I decided I could take on clients freelance, which is what I still do. Even though I am still working as an engineer, I actually do this additionally. I also went on to do an additional certification in the space of business constellation work, which is a subset of family constellation. So you can, if you choose to, if you're interested, you can actually go into the business space and apply the same methods, the same concept to the business or organizational space.
Cool.
Yeah, so it works beyond, but you need to know family constellation work first, and then you can go into this space.
All right.
Yeah, if you choose. And I was always intrigued because I come from a corporate background, so I like to marry both my interests, I guess, where I've come from a workspace and a sort of pretty standard corporate kind of organizational space, and my FC work, and
Cool.
So I have something that links them both together. So I do both family and business constellation work.
So
in my own space, in my own
So if
company.
you're looking to fix relationships professionally too.
Professionally and personally.
Please, go
Thank
to
you.
Surabhi.
Thank you.
So
Try my best.
the first things that we want to know that what is family constellations?
Okay.
Yeah, and how it's actually really work.
Okay.
Alright.
So to take a step back, the first thing I always get asked when I say I do family constellation work, they're like, oh, because they get very excited with the word constellation. So they're like, oh, are you an astrologer? And I'm like, no, definitely not. I don't know much about astrology beyond the basics. The reason we have the word constellation is because we are working with your life network. So let me explain that. So the family constellation work is based on the concept that we don't only inherit our physical traits from our parents and our family system. So it's not only your eyes, your nose, your mouth, everything. You also can, and most likely do, inherit the emotional patterns, the behavioral patterns.
The biggest baggage of all.
I'm sure people have seen the words intergenerational trauma thrown through your social media here and there, but this is also something that we look at. So people today who come to me might say, okay, so I inherited emotional behavioral patterns, so what? What does that actually mean for me? Now, all of these things that I inherited and passed down through generations can manifest in your current day-to-day life in a variety of different ways. So you could have issues with relationships, issues with being seen, being heard, something deep, abuse patterns, ADHD issues, various mental health concerns.
So it's like if you notice, you're always dating the wrong men. Like
Correct.
the same type of wrong people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you go into a relationship and you go, I'm never going to do what I did in my previous one again, and it's all going great. And then suddenly you start seeing similarities, and you go, oh, come on, I
flags.
knew, red flags. Not just red flags, the same red flags.
The same red,
and you go.
yes.
Surely I would have worked through that last time. I'm not, I'm so silly to bring them back in, and yet you do. People see the same pattern sometimes in the workspace with bosses,
Yes,
You
that's
always
very
attract the
common.
same kind of boss or the
Bosses.
same kind of person in power over you.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Same kind of
Touch wood.
bosses.
So
Lucky.
what about
Yeah.
the sickness?
The what?
The
Sorry?
sickness. Yeah.
Sicknesses can also be systemic. So going back to the definition.
Okay.
So like I said, it can also manifest in the forms of physical illnesses, etc. So when a client comes to us and says, I want to work on this issue from a constellation approach as opposed to any other therapy, because there are many forms of amazing therapy out there. So, but if they want to look at it from a family constellation approach, we set up what we call a living map or a living network of their issues. So we're like, okay, so we don't only speak to them, we also take a step backwards and go, what's your relationship with mom? What's your relationship with dad? Etc. Etc. So in doing so, we set up their constellation, and that's why the word constellation is in the topic. And similarly, when someone comes with an illness, we're like, we can look at it, but also keep in mind we're not medical professionals. So of course we would insist that the person get their doctors and their medical professionals to look at it. But we're like, we can always look at your illness from a systemic angle, especially if it's an illness that keeps recurring in your family
Yeah.
over and
It's
over.
repeating.
Cancer.
Yeah.
Cancers repeating, deaths and
Mental health.
mental
Similar-
health
Yeah.
issues repeating. Repetition of issues is where you go, this may be a systemic issue.
Even that's at particular, because I know a couple of friends whose family, like, mortality rate is at 60.
Potentially. Not saying it is,
Is,
but we
but-
would have to look at it. And we look at it, like I said, systemically. So I don't look so to go back to the definition of family constellation, it was developed into the form it's used today by a German therapist called Bert Hellinger, and he's the one. I mean, the work, the concepts behind it have been in the psychotherapy space for much longer. So it's
okay.
it's been in a variety of different modalities before, different parts of psychology where people have gone, okay, maybe people are not just individuals in silos, we are also interconnected. We don't exist by ourselves. We also came from one biological father, and so forth. So they start looking at people not just as individuals, but as part of a bigger network.
Yeah,
whether you're in
that's
a
true.
family or in an organization, so they start looking at you more than just as you. But also in many cultures around the world, I know there are fair few Asian cultures as well as African cultures, South American cultures that look at ancestral connections within our culture. So there's an acknowledgement that we came from two people who in turn came from two people, and
people,
so on.
yeah.
And that comes with a certain degree of passing on of certain things, good and bad. So all of these things do come into our cultures. So it's been around, but Bert Hellinger kind of developed it into a usable format that is used
Something
today.
which is more of, like, you can actually see
Like
the
that.
visual.
Correct, exactly. And so he learned some of these concepts from actually the African communities when he was doing work there with them. So he then started going, interesting, I get people, because he was a therapist already, and people were coming to him with stuff, and he's like, we work through this, and yet they still come back with recurring patterns. So then that's when he started taking a step back and looking at them beyond just them. They're like, okay, you are you, but you also came from mom and dad. So let's see, what was mom going through when you were born? What was dad going through when he was a child?
But
Is there similarities?
How do you know how far back do you need to go? Like the dynamics of one's life. Like you see, as far as I know, I've met my grandmother.
Correct.
When I was a young child, I met my great grandparents on both sides. But it is more like my parents don't remember the stories of their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go to someone and you see the patterns emerging and they happen to know, we know that granddad had something similar at this age, or grandma had, then great, that's a bonus, but it is not strictly necessary. All you need to know really is
Okay.
it feels, or the work seems to brings up the possibility that somebody, and it could be one generation ago, it could be many 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 levels ago, that had a similar experience, that may very likely or is the root cause behind all of this stuff that has now started manifesting in the space. Do we need to know the exact name, culture, space, everything? Not necessary.
Okay.
It's really the concept of something happened, something that happened in my line, but it is not mine. I'm carrying it. I'm showing it because the trauma by its nature, trauma of any sort by nature, wants to be seen, heard, and felt. And when it is not resolved, seen, heard, and felt in the time that it occurred, it just keeps coming up in different ways. Doesn't necessarily have to be in the exact same way,
Yeah.
but it will keep coming. And in some cases, it can be over space.
Okay.
There is a. Sorry, you were gonna say something.
No. Continue.
So I do a lot of akashic work, and I've got clients who come from obviously different patterns. But like you said, every time we do a reading, they go like, yes, okay, and then they come back a few months later, and they have this. It's coming back.
Yep.
It's happening again. So I will definitely transfer them over to you.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Okay.
Plug. But what I'm
Okay,
trying to say is that we believe that there are some issues where you can internally combust, like you can combat it and go like this. Okay, I'm done. You
I'm
know?
done, I'm doing
But of
it.
course, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
So she finds that there is a recurring pattern of her anxiety of that they need to find validation,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
That so let's just use her as an example. She will know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But let's use her as an example. Like she
Okay.
has this for years.
Mm-hmm.
There's this need to find validation,
Okay.
even though she go like, no, I don't care what people think. On the surface.
On the surface, but on the inside.
Yeah. So how do
Okay.
you dig deeper
So my
when
first,
it comes to?
so I would need to know a little bit more about her, but we don't share that obviously
Yes,
because
definitely
it's
no.
PNC.
Yeah.
But but my first question to her would be, so the concept of needing validation. Let's look at that. The concept of needing validation is not something that comes from an adult. It is children who need validation. Okay, so the minute
Okay.
you have an adult, woman or man or anybody, who is asking for validation, my first question is, what's your connection with mom and dad? And what was your connection like with mom and dad when you were younger? Because that would be where I would start. Of course, it can go to places, but that needing validation, the first, so there are, to take a step back, there was a lady in my class when I trained years ago who had a similar question to our teacher. And she's like, the concept of needing validation is that of a much younger person. It is not an adult concept. The adult you knows the adult you, the higher you, knows you're enough, knows that everything you come with is your whole. However, there's that little girl, that 5-year-old or 6-year-old, 10-year-old, whoever it is, who was maybe told she wasn't enough, or he was consistently throughout childhood would never ever 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 be seen by mom, or could never ever ever be seen by dad, for a variety of reasons. Not necessarily because mom and dad are bad people, but they had their own stuff. Maybe they weren't seen. Maybe mom and dad weren't seen themselves.
Traumas to deal with, right?
Recurring pattern. So there's this little girl who only just wants, I really want mom to see me. Mom's not seeing her because mom's cup herself is half empty. How to pour into someone else's cup. Yeah?
True.
So then this poor child grows up thinking, I'm not enough. I will never ever be enough. So it is not her, the adult, you need to deal with. You need to actually work on that aspect of her, the part of her that needs the validation. And the likelihood is, again, I would need to know details. I wouldn't, but the aspect of her who is 5 or 6 or who didn't get the validation at that point when she needed it as a child, when she needed mom to go, that's a good job, you've done a great job, man. Or I see you and okay, it's okay, so it didn't work out this time, so I'll try better next time, or whatever it was.
Whatever reason,
So
yeah.
the concept of validation itself comes from a younger space. So that would be my first okay, how old are you then? Just at that point of you wanting that validation, are you in whatever age she is, 40s, 30s, 20s, or are you actually, let's look at that part of you. So it ends up being more of an inner child type of situation. And as an adult, you parent that part of you because you
Right.
don't need.
We're so complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Why did you make us so complex?
Okay. All right.
I
Okay.
think it can actually be simplified,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, the layers are very interestingly complex. But you can simplify it into going, let's just work on that part. Let's forget about the peripherals.
Mm.
Let's forget about all the extra energies here. Let's just look at you. Let's look at that part of you that needs
So
transformation.
before we go further,
Yeah.
we just see a lot of little men in front of home street. So can you just tell us more about this little
little men.
Little men, yeah.
Men and ladies,
I-
and them.
I'll just give you a little short quip. Okay, so I met Surabhi at an event that I organized. I used to do the life reset event, and she was so gracious to join us there. And we only spoke over the phone. And then she came to the event to set up, and all these little people started appearing, and I just couldn't get my eyes off them. So when we invited her to come join us at the podcast, I said, please bring your little friends.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like
during
"Nah,
my visit to your event, I bring my wife to tour, and we dropped by her booth as well. So
Yes.
my wife have one like 15 minutes or 20 minutes
Yeah,
session
I
with
was
her.
doing like a mini
It's
consultation.
like boom.
15-20 minutes is enough to start.
No, but to
to dig.
the surface,
Surface.
I tell you,
Yeah.
she's breakdown during that time.
Really?
Yep. So I'm like, okay, I have to move away.
Anybody needs a good cry, call
Move away.
Surabhi.
Okay. So yeah, talk
introduce
about
us
your
to your beautiful people.
little human.
So the thing with family constellation work is there's a few things about it that sort of makes it in itself is slightly different from other forms of other therapies or therapeutic methods. And one of them is we offer the opportunity for the client to have a third person point of view into their issue. So a lot of the time when you're in a traumatic situation, you're under anxiety or whatever it is, you can't tell the wood from the trees because everything's happening here, and you can't disassociation is the wrong word because you don't want to be disassociated, but you can't step back and look at it from
like
external,
external. Yep.
and that's one of the things about family constellation work, because it can be conducted first in private sessions and group sessions. In private sessions, we use these lovely guys, objects. It doesn't even need to actually be wooden dolls. It can actually just be blocks. If you're doing it online, you can do it with shapes on a PowerPoint slide. You can do whatever.
That's
No,
interesting.
really?
Yeah, you can. You don't actually need to.
I love PowerPoint.
Yeah, I thought that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need to be in physical. Either you are in like this, or you're to be in the physical
Yeah.
kind of setup.
Correct. So if you're in a group session, you can use people to represent different aspects of the issue there. So say somebody wanted to look at their relationship with a particular person. So I would say, okay, let's pick one object for yourself and one object for the person. I don't insist it has to be a doll. It can even be a block. That already says a lot.
What, like you said, like you take this little guy. So like I said, this represents me. But they say, okay, pick one that represents your partner, and I pick like a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Is- but
But it's not like that. During the sessions, okay, I went through one, become an observer. I tell you, they're very, very interesting.
yeah, he had,
So it's
he
like
had
very,
stories.
very, very intense when I
Yeah.
joined this observer sessions. You can be anybody.
Yes.
You not doesn't mean that you only can be a child. You can be either the emotion or the object or in anything else to represent the particular things that the clients
Correct.
wants it. So this is a little bit of like you can be anything.
Yeah.
So like you obviously have
You're basically providing them an opportunity to get a third person. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're in the middle,
Correct,
but you cannot say.
correct,
correct.
The
Yeah.
minute you step out, even you ask them to just set something up, and they're like, "Oh well, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way." And you're like, "Okay, I'm glad you're getting some insight now. Could you tell me?" Because suddenly
during
they're
the-
seeing
yeah.
it differently.
But during
you know?
the sessions, right,
Yeah.
I actually literally feel that particular person that I don't even know.
Yes,
For
correct.
example,
Yes.
that sorry if you know who are you, okay, the client, all right. So I actually become their their brother's identity
Yes.
in me.
Yes.
So when they ask me about all the emotion, right, actually I literally can feel who am I, and I can imagine their face as well.
yeah.
So when I describe them to the client, they say that, oh my god. Yeah,
so that's the woo-woo part of this
Yes,
that
this is
I don't
woo-woo
get.
part,
Correct. So this is literally it's based on the concept of morphic resonance, where it's every person, every or when we say, so what Calvin's referring to is a group session. These are used primarily in private sessions because with the private session it'd be just me and a client. So I would need to figure out based on how they set up their constellation what's going on, and they need to do all the work in terms of like how's that for you, what's your connection with this person, do you feel connected, where are you feeling it in your body. We do ask a lot of somatic experience type, based questions. With what Calvin just mentioned, in a group session I wouldn't have these available. Or I could have them on the side, but if I had a group of say 10 people, I'd ask the client, okay, could you pick someone to represent, say, your mom, your brother, whoever it is, and then say in Calvin's case he was representing a sibling, so he steps into the space, and the space, literally happens is, because that person is connected to all the people in their life, obviously, whether it's friends, co-workers, whatever it is, at that point in time when Calvin steps into the role, or is asked to step into the role of a brother or a sibling or another sibling, a parent, just for that short period of time, he can sense that we use the body a lot. So we ask them, what do you feel right now? And we don't need details. Like in your case, you're probably quite an intuitive person, so you can even visualize certain aspects.
Yep.
That's okay. But for the average, say, representative, as we call them, who may not be so visual, that's still okay. We can ask them, do you feel connected to this person? They're like, no, not really. So we are going with we are relying on the representative, what their sensations in their body. That's what we're dealing with. In a private session, we are dealing with objects.
You use this for one trauma at a time.
Yes, we usually work with one aspect at a time because we tend to be quite root cause centric in our
root cause.
It's very root cause centric. So we don't. So when a person comes with a symptom, I always have anxiety. We're not focusing on your anxiety. Your anxiety is your symptom. Where is it starting from?
Yeah, but how would I know?
That's where we do the session. So it could be from anything because it could, anxiety is a very big umbrella topic, obviously, but for different people,
They
it
even
could
have
be
a song,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Can you show us some examples and how you use?
Because
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
a string and there's
Yeah.
people
I saw it's
and there's
crystals,
crystals
Swarovski.
and building blocks. She's an engineer,
No, I have to have my building blocks.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
show us.
Okay, so I'll give you, one of my favorite examples
Yeah.
is from one of the first events I did before I got to know you. I was, I had all this set up, and occasionally someone would come and talk to me. At one point when things were quite quiet, a little girl came up. She was the daughter of somebody else in that space. And she said, oh my God, dogs. I'm like, of course, kid, right?
It's
She's
so
like
cute.
colorful, and she's like, I want to play. I'm like, okay, so these are not actually toys. They're like part of my work. She's like, oh, so how do you use them? I'm like, I'm looking around for this child's mother, obviously, because I'm like, I'm not, but she's basically, she was like, oh, could you show me how I use it? I'm like, well, okay. I'm like, I use these to represent different aspects of issues that my clients might come with. She's like, okay. And 11-year-old, but incredibly bright. And she's like, can I try one? I'm like, all right, I'm not going to constellate an 11-year-old girl, especially without the
Parental
permission,
consent,
right,
right?
which is very,
Consent,
very
yeah.
important, by the way. Even with adults, you need permission, yeah? So I'm like, okay, you know what? You want to play? Just set up your family, And she's like, I'm like, what does your family look like? She's like, well, there's mom and dad, that's me, and she's got younger siblings. I'm like, okay, let's park the siblings aside for now. Let's just do, you're the oldest, you, mom and dad. So this is what she did. So I'm like, anything. She's like, I can pick anything. I'm like, just instinctively what you want to pick, you pick lah. Okay? Let her have a go at it. So this is what she did. So she chose,
That's figure.
yep. So that was her.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. This is mom.
Oh.
And this was, I don't have the straight doll, but it was a straight doll. That was dad.
See, that's what I was saying. Like, can you
yeah.
You can pick whatever you want. Instinctively, we tend to ask people not to overthink it. So some people are like, I'm like, no, just, in fact, pick it blind if you want. Sometimes we tell people, close your eyes and just pick what you want.
All right.
Because it will be very telling anyway. So this is what she did. Her mom, her dad. Okay? Yeah, so
Okay.
just as people who, as neutral parties, if you looked at that, what would be your first Well,
It's
you
like
can.
she's taking care of mom and dad. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
definitely an aspect. That's a big aspect. Yes, they're all the same color. So colors don't necessarily have to mean too much, but in some cases they do. In this case, it seemed to imply that she does see them as a unit.
Unit, yeah.
She does see them as a unit.
The first thing that I see is the father figure.
Yeah.
Just now I saw his father, but
But
says
probably
is
affects you because you're a dad
adult,
as
yeah.
well. You know, do my
Correct,
kids
correct.
see me this way too?
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know?
So a little bit of like, far from them. This is my very, very far from them. And,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So he could be an absent parent, maybe.
Maybe. So this is the kind of questions that start popping up in your head when you see this. This is what we call the first picture. Of course, as we do the constellation work, it will move. Like we will move it around based on how the client's feeling, etc. Of course, I did not do a constellation for her, but the reason I like this example is very telling. Firstly, she's only 11, but she's set herself as the biggest figure there,
yeah.
bigger than mom and dad, which means that is what we, an example of what we call parentification. I'm taking over my mom's and dad's role here, or I feel, and I'm like, you're close to your mom? She's like, yeah, I'm very close. Her words, not mine. I feel I need to protect her. So this is an 11-year-old. So when your first question is why, if I was in a session,
curious, isn't it?
if I were in a session with her or with a parent rather, I would go, so why does your 11-year-old feel the need why does she feel the need to protect you? Because at 11, it really is the other way around.
Yeah.
Firstly, so she's the biggest figure, and I'm like, so your dad's quite small and cute, huh? And she's like, oh, that's so silly. Those were her words. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this 11-year-old kind of almost looks down on dad. Like there was a certain degree of, dad, and needing to protect mother. So that's already very telling as to, that's an interesting dynamic that's going on. Firstly, dad, like you said, not so close, like standing a little bit further away. And she's bigger than both of them. So that to me would be the start of a conversation.
Oh my god, there's so many things running through my head.
So you see the first layer of
So-
the investigations, right? You can know a lot
Already-
of message
Correct.
Yeah.
in between
Correct.
three of them.
Correct. So it's quite telling already. In some cases, it's a bit obvious, like where you would go with the questioning. With some, it's not as obvious, but then you start prodding, like you start asking questions. Okay, so what's that bringing up for you? How does that make you feel? Where in your body are you feeling it?
So
These are
let's
the kind of
let's say now you are having you've tried everything lah. Okay. I've tried meditation, I've tried trauma healing, I've tried this and that and everything. I mean, we are saying everything is good. It depends on how you utilize it. But this is one more thing you can try.
different
Correct?
aspects. Yeah.
So what do I need to mentally prepare myself for when I say, before I pick up the phone and say, hi Surabhi,
Yeah.
I have problems.
Yeah.
And you say, come see me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. What do I need to prepare? Do I need to pick a trauma? Like spin the wheel and
Well-
say, trauma for today?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So most of the time when people call me for sessions, it's because they have a specific thing that they already want to work on anyway.
Okay. Okay.
Some people do go, I was recommended to try this out.
Fix me.
fix
Fix
me.
me.
And then to which I go, I can't fix you because you ain't broken. But if there's something you want to look at, then we can look at it. I have had clients come in like, we feel we need to work on something, we're not quite sure what that is. We're like, okay, let's look at what's coming up for you in life right now. And usually they'll come up with 2 or 3 different things. I'm like, okay, then for today, what has the most weight? Because we work with the current, with the present. So what was an issue yesterday may not be an issue right now anymore.
True that,
You
true
know, it may crop up later. I'm not saying it's gone away, but right now there's a reason why you're sitting with me right now at this point, at this time, on this date. Let's look at what's coming up for you right this instant.
So we will have a follow-up episode on to dig a little deeper on family constellation. But Surabhi, as like a parting note,
Yeah.
what would you like to say and tell our viewers?
Audience.
Before they pick up and say, "Fix me."
Hi Surabhi, come and fix me.
I ain't fixing no one. You
What
can fix
what
yourself.
would be your Kevin? What is the that
The
phrase
advice
you
of the
use?
advice, the
yes.
advice that for family constellations.
So for me, that's a good question. I think for me, it's basically in general, and this is not specific to FC either. It's in general, people sometimes feel that they're broken and there's nothing they can do, etc., etc. The truth is, you're not, firstly. And secondly, it's not anybody, it's everyone's own responsibility to sort themselves out. facilitators, family constellation people, therapeutic people of any kind, they're there to hold space for you, to facilitate your healing. But the truth is, you're not actually so broken that you can't work on yourself. You know what I mean? At any point. FC may not be it, FC may be it. That's great. The reason, when I come to a point where I like to look at family constellation work, especially, is when I start seeing a lot of recurring patterns in my life. That's my, sort of like, I know I'm doing things right, or at least on paper I'm doing things right, but somehow this still keeps coming up. I know I have actively made the right decision here.
That's why around the 30s and late 30s, that's when people start identifying trauma.
It's because
they have lived through quite a bit already.
You've lived through quite a bit, and you've most likely, if you've had to live through quite a bit, you've had to repress a lot.
Yeah.
So you repress, and then you get to a point where your body's going, no. So then you start spewing all over the place, and then you go, oh, okay, maybe I need to look at this, And I personally think that age, at least, is getting younger in terms of, I've had some clients coming in quite young, in their early 20s, going, I've recognized this, I've recognized that. And I commend them, because I go, in my early 20s, I don't think I would have been,
I wouldn't care. Like,
I would have not been aware enough about my own stuff, enough to have gone to an external person and gone, I don't think this is healthy, or I don't think this is right, But I think the message for me really is that it's everyone's own individual responsibility to heal themselves. You can't, a lot of times people come to practitioners and other therapeutic people or therapists looking for, these are all my problems, fix me.
Yeah, true. True.
Or they want to delegate their healing, whatever that healing means for different people, or they just kind of want to fix me. You're like, actually, you're perfectly capable of fixing yourself. But if you feel you're broken, that you can't do it, maybe that's something you need to look at.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an aspect we need to look at. So everybody's responsible for their own healing, and the job of an FC facilitator and other facilitators is to hold that space for them and give them the insight, because obviously when you're going through a lot of muck, you're not going to be able to have that view over what's going on.
I think that's true.
But once you do, or if a facilitator can help you along that journey to identify what that is, then you can do that. You can do that own work, and you can you can take that step yourself.
Awesome.
With the support of a facilitator, up to a point where you go, I'm good. I because the whole point is we don't. Moving to last thing you want is someone to get addicted to something new.
Yeah, see, that's but that's a question for another episode.
Okay.
Kevin, your parting words.
Yeah. Thank you, Surabhi, for the coming here.
This is so exciting. It's like my brain is like overthinking.
Because for the healers, whoever practitioners, the holding space is very important.
Yes,
right?
yes.
For the
exactly.
clients to come in and to make them understand what's going on, all this thing. Yeah. Thanks, Surabhi, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
To our channel.
Thank you for
to
having
talk
me. I appreciate
about
it.
this. Yeah.
I
Okay.
had so much fun. So
Right.
give us, write in the comments, subscribe, click the bell icon to get reminders. If you need Surabhi's contact, we'll put it in our channel.
Okay, so want to get a little man here, just come and
Yes.
come towards us, and we'll, if you want to find Surabhi, so to let us know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.